So my topic actually is emission, fuel option, and energy efficiency. So as you know that IMO has a lot of regulation in place and coming in. One is looming 2020 January, low sulfur cap. So this is the timeline for basically 3 emissions are there: SOx, NOx, and CO2. So for 2020, let me touch on that. The fuel option we have basically is high sulfur fuel oil, scrubber, or MGO, MDO, or alternative fuels, right? Each of them has pro and con, each of them. Nothing is really problem-free. One way or other, you have problem. If you go for heavy fuel oil, even compliant fuel, the availability is one thing, and the quality would be another one. And the price of low sulfur fuel could be pretty high, though it is of anyone's guess. A lot of rumor is going on. And then scrubber availability is a question. And in the yard, I think they are fully booked more or less in China. And the LNG, basically availability was a question mark, but plus it didn't fly because the retrofit option is not very lucrative. So how it looks like? It looks like, I said, LNG is not very attractive because you have the existing tanks and that will be redundant, and you put additional tank is going to increase the weight of the ship. So it didn't fly. But looking forward, LNG most likely by 2030, it will come in and will really sort of capture the market, especially with the new build slowly when it replaces the old ones. And then funny thing would be that, as you see in the graph, that the high sulfur fuel, the demand will drop, but it will most likely sort of inch up because a lot of people are still hesitating whether to go for a scrubber, but they eventually will. Problem with low sulfur fuel will be the cutter stock, the one they use to lower the viscosity, lower the sulfur content. That causes problem. This is the Delft report. It says where the cutter stock come from. And most dangerous one is the one chemical waste coming from the industry. So refiners will be supplying this low sulfur fuel, and so will be the trader. Refiners by hydrotreating or by blending, but that quality most likely will be all right. But the one you buy from the trader, you need to watch out because the blending may not be perfect. So you really have to watch out. And then there will be predominantly paraffinic-based or aromatic-based kind of thing will come in, and that will tell you what sort of fuel you are getting and how you are prepared for that. And this is a bit different than what you have right now. It's very homogeneous fuel, right? Publicly available specification came in from ISO. Basically, it's the guideline. There's no standard. They warn you about the compatibility. That means when you mix the fuel and stability, it can separate by itself, and viscosity. These are the concerns. So far we have seen some areas that are concerned of certain things, some cat fines, some port points, and all this. Good thing, sulfur is actually, low sulfur means more hydrocarbon. You get more energy, yes. You can get more megajoule per kilogram of fuel. But then again, they're concerned about the compatibility, stability, and viscosity and all this. Main engine, auxiliary engine, all will be affected because of combustibility of this kind of fuel, if it's paraffinic or aromatic, because of the viscosity and all. And the lubrication is another one to watch out. So summary is this. That means main engine and auxiliary engine, they will have combustibility problem because the viscosity too low, penetration and atomization will be affected. And that means there will be a lot of hidden losses. You will see the fuel consumption will go up. There will be a lot of leakage from the plunger and barrel because of low viscosity and all. And that will contribute to, again, loss of or rather increase the consumption. But the good thing, again, is that the sulfur content would be low and hydrocarbon will be more, so you have energy content higher. So it's a mix of good and bad for 2020 fuel. Another one would be that if you don't need the heating of the fuel oil, because the viscosity, if it is too low, then what are you going to do with the exhaust gas economizer? Because that it becomes redundant. How are you going to dump the live steam? So some say that they will dump to the drain cooler. Please don't do that. It will simply bloat the drain cooler. It's not meant for that, right? So point is that all the engines have been designed for the high viscosity fuel, and then you have the injection viscosity is supposed to maintain between 12 to 18 CST. But then if the viscosity of the fuel you are getting is around 8 CST, 10 CST, 15 CST, there's no lower cap of the CST, then are you going to change the injector nozzles or the fuel pump plunger and barrel? You do that, but the next batch of fuel could be again higher viscosity. Again, you have to heat up to bring down the injection viscosity. So 2020 fuel, what we see is that the biggest concern would be this wider range of viscosity would be the biggest problem out of all. Alternative fuel, many alternative fuel, many platform you heard about. But these are the common ones you hear of: LNG, LPG, methanol, biofuel, hydrogen, and technology-wise, battery, fuel cells, and many others, right? So what we see that right up to 2050, you will have, like on the left-hand side, you see the transport sector, and on the right-hand side, the biofuel, how it is going to come in the marine, what percentage is not so much. What was predicted really for that by 2030, 1/3 of the fuel would be biofuel is not going to happen. It's pretty expensive. So how the propulsion power will look like? It will be, if you see from 2020, that it will have LNG will come in, as I said, from 2030, most likely LNG will come in. Then LNG for all ship type. And then there will be some other supplementary kind of propulsion things will come in. Wind-supported ship propulsion, liquid and gas fuels from hydrogen and the CO2. That is up to 2100. So that is the long-term kind of thing. And then it will be sort of combined thing. It will most likely will be like solar panel, go through the battery, or the power management, LNG reform, go through the fuel cell. And then again, wind sail will come in, and the waste heat recovery, again, whatever you can, that will be optimized further. And that ultimately will be, the combined thing will be driving most likely in future. So if we summarize that, that means if you have diesel oil, if you use, then you have to, diesel means diesel engine, not really diesel. Heavy fuel oil, then you have to use the scrubber, then you satisfy SOx. And if you go for like EGR, SCR, then you satisfy NOx. That's how the metrics to be read, right? So as you see that diesel cycle, auto cycle, and cogex perfect comes in, and then how you satisfy what sort of regulation, is it future ready or not? Like one thing maybe to highlight is that right now if you use LNG for the auto cycle, you are looking at some kind of methane slip, right? So that is, again, is not really a welcome thing, right? But then again, if you go for cogex, you don't have that methane slip. And the concern of the fuel would be, these are the ones. Always the case, availability of the price, sustainability, practical application on ship. Energy efficiency, EEDI, all of us know about the EEDI. Year after year, it's going down and down, and it is expected to go down. And then how you make use of that EEDI and EUI. So this MAC curve is marginally abatement cost curve. Basically tell you what sort of initiative you can take to reduce the EEDI and EUI. Color difference tell you that, that is hull opening and all, it is part of EEDI kind of thing because you have to do during a new build. And the other color, actually, you see the operation-wise, that means slow steaming and all this stuff and all. So we see that wave of energy efficiency drives. There are a lot of initiatives coming up with EEDI and EUI. So slow steaming, for example, it is part of EUI, is the operational behavior. And trim optimization is again part of EEOI, but hull optimization is on the EEDI. It's a mix of all those things, wave after wave, first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave. Last one we believe is that the fifth wave comes in, and that fifth wave basically is the crew behavior. That again contribute. You can have a lot of initiative, but if the crew doesn't take the interest really to reduce the sort of fuel consumption and the emission, then all goes in vain. It's, especially for the team optimization and those kind of things, or slow steaming. So crew have to be there, and then like carrying less ballast and all those stuff. So some of those performance one like EEOI, how do you monitor that? So you go by that specific fuel consumption and look at the operational parameters and all, right? Hull cleaning is another one. But again, at the end of the day, we are looking at how much it really contributes. We must have long-term strategy. We know that 2020 is one, but the next one we are looking at is 2050. We have to bring down the CO2 emission by 50% from 2008, right? And that is a big question mark. What are you going to do about that? And short term, as you can see here, short term and long term, you can have different kind of strategy in order to achieve that. So at the end of the day, I would say the contribution from SAMP and EEDI, there's a lot of publication on that, but SAMP, Ship Energy Efficiency Management Plan with EEOI, basically it will contribute more because the number of ships in question is a lot, though the saving is very little. So it's a product of two things. EEDI, you gain a lot, high rate of saving, but then again, low number of ships, and other one seems the number of ships is huge, but maybe the saving is less. And at the end of the day, I think, no matter what you do, incremental thing, but at the end, most likely it will be the slow steaming. One way or other, it has to come in because of the exponential relationship. That is the biggest saving in emission I think we can have. Thank you. I'll rush to the slide, and then we will have panel discussion. So anything you have in mind, you can ask the question. Thank you.
Okay.